Tell me the iVerify story. Where were you when that started?
I'll go one step through. So my very first company, we used cameras on forklifts, so computer vision, and we automated data collection in warehouses, right? So
And
think about putting a
when
camera
was this? Circa.
03 to '09, right? So my very first company I started, dude, I was 27 years old. It was a long time ago. I started in 2003, and we were basically working in warehousing using data capture technology, both RFID and computer vision. I was really captured by computer vision and what we could do with it. And then when you're in a warehouse, one of the things that we realized is like forklift drivers are really good at dynamic and unconstrained environments. They want to drive like bats out of hell. They can drive so fast anywhere, but they hate barcode scanning. The stuff they always messed up of like, hey, dude, when you pick a pallet up, always scan the barcode. I don't know how you messed that up, but they would invariably mess up what I picked up or where I put it down. Like you scanned something wrong. You simply didn't scan it when you put it down. And so they're like, if we could automate the scanning on the pickup and the put down, drivers could just drive. They could literally, so we joked that we turned forklift drivers into race car drivers. All they had to do was drive. We took care of all of the scanning. So we had a camera on the front of the truck. And so it's always looking, right? And so, hey, I see a pallet. I see a label, auto scan the barcode, so I know what pallet I have. And then we put 2D barcodes in the ceiling, right? And so it's like your own indoor GPS system, and you always had an unobstructed view above the forklift. So basically, you ended up with a really clean system that automated the stuff that forklift drivers hated and wasn't good at, and let them just drive. So that was we sold that to a private equity. That had really fun day to roll up with them. So I had a great experience with the private equity. They're like, hey, we like the management team. We want to buy a couple of other companies in this space. So we did that. I sold kind of my company to them. And then kind of with their money, I bought 2 more companies. It's a great experience really early on. So I was with them for 2 or 3 years after the acquisition. But then a friend here in Kansas City said, hey, there's this professor at the University of Missouri, Kansas City over at UMKC. And they're doing some really cool things with computer vision. I know you're really into that. You should go take a look at it. I'm like, sure. So went over and was just fascinated by Dr. Reza Darachani is the guy's name. And he was a bit of a mad scientist who like really creative, really personable as far as, professors go. He was wicked smart, very creative, and again, very, very personable, easy to talk to. And so as he was talking about what he was doing, he's like, hey, I'm using computer vision, just regular cameras, but I can look at the blood vessels and the whites of your eyes and determine a biometric, just like a fingerprint. We eventually called it the eye print. This was so university. They called it, I can't remember, conjunctival vasculature of the sclera. Like literally, it was like, it was like some crazy name. I'm like, okay, that never works. Like, it's like the fingerprint. Why don't you just call it the eye print? And so we called it the eye print. And he had some really cool technology. Usually a lot of the eye-based technologies take special hardware, special lighting, special cameras, which made it impractical to scale, right? So you're never going to put that on a smartphone. And so in fact, I went to the university and they're like, yeah, we got this great technology. We think it's airports, immigration, and military. I'm like, okay, those are really hard to do startups in. Like, okay, but tell me more. I try to understand it. And I'm like, yeah, there's no chance you're going to do a startup in those spaces. But these smartphones had just come out with something they're calling the selfie camera. Could we use the selfie camera to be able to capture the image and do the same thing? And people are like, why would anyone do that? Like, because passwords are terrible. Like if I can just look at my phone and that logged me into my phone, that logged me into my application, like that would be a great user experience. And no one likes passwords. And I got a lot of pushback, like initially, both from investors and the university, like, if that's such a good idea, Apple and Google would already be doing biometrics on the device. I'm like, I don't know. This feels like a good idea. Let's give it a try. Let's see what we can do. Launched iVerify in Q1 of 2012, and we got lucky. Had a great, phenomenal kind of technology engineering team. So we built that little SDK. We were trying to sell it to Wells Fargo at the time. I remember this actually very clearly. And Wells Fargo was like, wow, this is really cool. This is really interesting. And Apple came out with Touch ID, right? The fingerprint. And I'm like, oh crap, did I choose the wrong modality? Like, so eyes a modality, fingerprints a modality. I'm like, did I just screw up? And I called one of my board members and I'm like, did I just like completely screw the company? Because Apple just chose Touch ID and we're using the eye. Is everybody going to think you have to use Touch? And it's like, absolutely not. Like they've just consumerized biometrics. That's exactly what you are. There's always going to be multiple options. The value of having kind of a experience and wisdom kind of along the way. And so right place, right time. So we started in Q1 of 2012. Touch ID came out in Q3 of 13. So 18 months later. And then a year after that, Apple Pay. And so then everybody was like, payments on your phone. That's what biometrics is going to be used for. And so we had Wells Fargo, we had Citi, we had 60 banks in the US kind of using our little kind of a SDK. We were working with a bunch of folks over in Korea, Japan, China, and started calling it Alipay, which is kind of at the time was the world's largest payment wallet. And I said, wow, this is fascinating. They offered to lead our Series B. Right during that conversation, we had another strategic approaches and say, hey, we have 90% of the Android fingerprint market. We would like to be able to sell fingers and eyes to the Android world. Would that make sense? I'm like, yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And so basically got those two into bidding war and we were able to exit. But even that story, so in December 9th of 2015, I am almost out of money. Right? In October of that year, my tier one VC out of Silicon Valley had committed to lead our Series B and then completely backed out on us, left us crazy high and dry. Huge sucker punch. Fortunately, my investor stepped up. They gave us an inside round, kind of gave us a little more funding, but even that was coming to an end. I was going to be up at the end of December. Alipay stepped in. They were doing a bunch of testing. They like, wow, this is fascinating. They really, really liked it. And their corporate venture capital investment team said, hey, if our product team agrees to move forward, we want to lead your Series B with a $20 million investment. That's amazing. The largest customer that I could think of in the world, literally, they're my largest customer, wants to invest, which kind of gives me the inside track and gives me credibility with everybody else. And so December 9th, we're having our final meeting with the product team. They've done a bunch of testing and they're basically going to come back and tell us their results. If those results are good and they decide to move forward, then I can get a little bit more money in to let me give enough runway to finish the round or to get the Series B done, right? And so December 9th, I can make December 15th payroll. I cannot make December 30th. Right? So it's that close. And I've already done an inside round. I don't know where more money's coming from. It was dark days, right? Heavy days. We were being in my kitchen and so it was a nighttime call because it's morning over there, 12 hours off. And my wife's like, hey, are you ready for this call? And I might stop. And I literally just started weeping, just crying of like, I feel so much pressure. Like hardly anybody understands how close we are to the precipice. Everybody thinks we're doing well. And in many ways we are doing well. If this call doesn't go well, I genuinely think it might be over. My wife is amazing. Wives that take this journey with us are amazing. She's basically just kind of held me, let me cry. And she's like, hey, if this whole thing blows up, do you think I'll still love you? Yeah. The people that you respect, are they still going to respect you? I'm like, yeah. Does God still have a plan for your life? Yeah. Then just go do what you're made to do. It's all going to be okay. Everything that you actually care about, nothing's going to change. Just go do what you're made to do. And dude, having someone who has that kind of perspective in the dark of the night is just so powerful. One of my friends has a saying kind of for those kinds of moments, like we need friends in our life that can sing our soul's song back to us when we've lost the melody, right? So our spirit has a song, right? So they're kind of, hey, what were we made to do? Why were we here? Kind of what are we called to? And in the dark of the night, super pressure, like we can lose the plot, like we lose the melody. We're so consumed and stressed and being pulled in so many directions. And to have someone come back and kind of sing our song back to us to bring us back. You're right. It's going to be what it's going to be. And we're going to go in. And if it all fails, it's going to suck and it's going to hurt. And I'm going to be embarrassed. And you're still going to love me. And there's still a plan. And we'll continue forward. Fortunately, they said, it's great. We love it. We want to continue forward. My investors said they wanted to go forward. I went out to CES first week in January. Again, this is now 3 weeks later. And I met up with my friend who now works over at this other fingerprint company. And we start talking and very quickly turns to a very strategic conversation. And that's where this other bid came in from. And so now I have to go back and tell Alibaba, like, I need you to wait a few weeks. I'm like, what do you mean wait a few weeks? I was like, well, I had a strategic approaches and we had to talk to them. And, the goal is we were hoping that they would kind of say, well, we would like, we're okay looking at an investment as well. And initially it got crazy pissed. They're like, you're making a huge mistake, and hang up the phone. I'm like, oh man, did I just really screw this up? And again, the board knew what was going on, right? So full support of the board as we were doing this. And they called back the next day like, hey, I met with the investment committee. We would like to also have a conversation about an acquisition. So basically those two got in a bidding war. We signed a term sheet to sell iVerify on February 13th. December 9th, I'm not sure if I have a company. December 13th, I have a term sheet to sell the company for over $100 million. So it's just crazy. I mean, that's the roller coaster. So when people look at the headlines of what happened, they're like, oh, look at that. He pulled technology out of a university, raised $10 million, and 4 years later sold it for 100. Wow, that seemed like a really easy ride. Yeah, no idea.
That you're like on a knife's edge on a weekly basis there.
Yeah, not for the faint of heart.
No. And what an interesting version of that story where the outside version of like, oh, there's a bidding war is like, oh, we had interest and then we had more interest. not that you had to throw away the first indication of interest in order to like have that come back the right way. It's not really a bluff call, but like you had to jump off that cliff and like hope somebody caught you.
Yes. It was not a bluff. It was real. Like that would have been idiotic to bluff that. But it was a risk, right? So you're kind of risking things. But I mean, if I've learned anything over time, I mean, relationships and just being authentic, being credible, being trustworthy, incalculable in its value.